I thought to myself, this dream again. It was June, 8 years ago, at Los Angeles International Airport. Standing beside me was Karen, who had just gotten married 2 days prior. We were celebrating the spring of our 6th year together. The preparations for the wedding and moving were overlapping, and we were both a little tired. Our honeymoon destination was Finland. It was a place we both decided on to forget work and everything else and just relax. Karen, you look a bit pale. Are you tired? Karen, always the hard worker, rarely showed signs of fatigue to anybody. Yeah, maybe a little tired. I'll sleep on the plane. Karen said with a smile. Right, it's a long flight, so it's a good idea to get some rest. I said so while checking the time. But there was no response from Karen. Instead, I heard the sound of something heavy falling and a scream from a lady nearby. In the dream, I kept chanting to myself, this is just a dream, just a dream. But I didn't want to remember that moment. It was Karen who had fallen to the ground. That became our eternal farewell. I woke up, wiping the tears from my eyes. Every morning I have this dream, I wake up crying. It had been 8 years since Karen passed away. Right before our honeymoon departure at Los Angeles International Airport. She died from a ruptured aortic aneurysm. The doctor said it was like being shot in the heart with a gun. I convinced myself it was better if she hadn't suffered. Otherwise, I felt like my sanity would collapse. My name is Sean. Currently, I'm a 36-year-old architect. The year I married Karen, I started my own firm and became independent. The architectural firm was doing well, and I was starting to make a name for myself as an architect. After Karen's death, I stopped thinking about anything else and devoted myself to work. I believe that's what led me to where I am today. The amount of work I was being offered increased so much that my current setup couldn't handle it all. After discussing it with a friend in the same industry, I decided to hire a new architect. On my desk in the office, there's a schedule for interviews. Since I told my friend I'd prefer someone who is a certified architect, I expect all candidates to be highly skilled. I've interviewed about 5 people so far, but haven't found the right fit yet. At times like this, Karen would say, just go with your gut. She always laughed and called me indecisive because I like to proceed with caution in everything. It was the same when we were looking for our new place to live after getting married. No matter how many places we checked out, I couldn't make a decision because nothing seemed just right. Karen had a black cat, so the place had to be pet-friendly. We were looking for a rental apartment because I planned to eventually build our own house. Come on, it's just a temporary place. Make some compromises. Karen said, exhausted from all the viewings, squatting down, not wanting to walk anymore. It's a fond memory. In the end, we settled on the apartment Karen chose. It was a cat-friendly apartment with catwalks installed on the walls. What? So the cat's comfort comes before ours? Of course. Who have I been with longer? Being responded to with a serious face, I've found myself at a loss for words before. The first to step into our new home was the black cat brought by Karen. It entered the room as if it owned a place, turned to look at us standing at the entrance, and meowed as if to say, "Follow me." It was as if the cat was inviting us, and we couldn't help but burst into laughter. The pitch-black cat Karen had. After she passed away, the cat followed her as if not wanting to be left behind. Being left behind even by the cat made me feel miserable. I think I never really won over that cat until the end. Every happy memory with Karen always ends with a sad one. Today at noon, the interview scheduled for 1 p.m. was with a young woman who was about to turn 27. Despite her youth, she apparently held a first-class architect license. The photo on the resume she had sent beforehand had a piercing look, indicating a strong will. I have a hard time dealing with strong-willed women. I thought to myself, maybe today will be another miss. While thinking this, I sipped my after-meal coffee. The woman scheduled for the interview showed up at the office right at 1 p.m. While many candidates come in business suits for job hunting, she was different. She was wearing an oversized black shirt with slim-fit denim. A casual outfit that seemed out of place for an interview. When she entered the office, I almost mistook her for a customer. "I'm Emily, here for the 1 p.m. interview." She introduced herself across the counter, and that's when I knew she was here for the interview. The letter of referral she handed over had the name of my mentor on it. "I'd like to start by hearing about your motivation for applying." Her black hair was cut into a short wolf style, and from her helix down, earrings adorned her ears in order. Her thin eyeliner was flawlessly flicked up, giving her a cat-like gaze. She had a rather unique vibe, but everything seemed to suit her well-groomed features. "Before that, allow me to introduce a bit about my work." She said so, and pulled out her laptop. What appeared on the screen were her design blueprints. My design theme revolves around living with pets. The home she designed was for a young couple and their 3 cats. The design allowed cats to freely roam and play throughout the house. It was a layout that easily brought such scenes to mind. Despite its cozy feel, the space is quite spacious. There was a sense of delicacy unique to a woman in her work. Listening to her presentation, my interest in her work suddenly piqued. I wanted to work with her. That thought made me impatient. "You're hired. Please start from tomorrow." For someone as indecisive as me, it was unbelievable to hear those words come out of my mouth. I was surprised, but the others around me were even more so, causing a brief stir in the office. The only one who remained calm was the woman who had come for the interview. She looked as if she knew she would be hired. "I look forward to working with you, Sean." She extended her right hand, and I shook it. It was indeed a slender and small hand, the hand of a young woman. From the next day, she became an immediate asset to our office. The existing staff, motivated not to be outdone by her, began to put in even more effort. The performance of our office started to improve steadily. One evening, as I returned to the office from the site, I found a small cardboard box placed in the narrow space between our office and the neighboring building. "What's that, Sean? What are you doing?" As I was reaching into the gap to move the cardboard box, Emily, who had just returned to the office at the same time, called out to me. "There's a box here," I replied. "Let me see," she said, peering into the dim space. Then, with a look of sudden realization, she slid into the gap between the buildings without a care for her clothes getting dirty. Her white shirt got smeared with black marks from rubbing against the outer wall of the building. When she emerged from the gap holding the cardboard box above her head, her cheeks were also marked with black smudges. "Sean, look at this," she said quietly as she set the box down and opened the lid. Inside were 3 kittens, not yet able to open their eyes, making faint sounds. "What? Cats?" I was surprised to see 3 little black kittens inside the box. "I'll take them to the vet," Emily declared, picking up the box. "I'll get the car ready," I offered. We immediately took the kittens to the veterinary clinic. Although they were a bit weak, we were relieved to hear they were not in any life-threatening danger. The thought of someone abandoning such small lives was horrifying and infuriating at the same time. Emily was listening carefully to the veterinarian, gathering all the necessary care instructions. It seemed she intended to take them home. Watching her lift the treated kittens, I was struck by a sense of déjà vu. It felt like I had encountered a similar scene before. When was that? I pondered, retracing my memories. Yes. It was 8 years ago, on the day of Karen's interment ceremony. The weather was overcast, looking like it might rain at any moment. I never imagined that Karen's ashes would be the first to be placed in the brand new columbarium. The cemetery itself was newly established, with all surrounding graves also being new. It seemed that the grave next to us was also having an interment ceremony. Karen's interment was attended by my parents, her parents, relatives from both sides, and many others. Glancing over to the neighboring grave, I saw a group of students in uniform participating. It appeared the deceased being entered there was still young. Everyone was in tears, mourning their last farewell. Among them, one girl stood out with her straight posture, staring emotionlessly at the grave. She must have been a relative of the deceased. She was holding a portrait to her chest. She wasn't shedding any tears. Her expression was devoid of all emotion, as if she was completely detached from the surrounding sounds. After the interment was over and I had seen off the attendees, I lingered alone in front of the grave for a while. I wanted to smoke a cigarette, but the neighboring grave was still occupied by the other ceremony. I chose to refrain, out of consideration. As I stood there, lost in thought, I overheard whispers from the attendees of the adjacent ceremony, not even crying. I couldn't help but listen in. All I could hear were comments like, "What a cold child." They were probably talking about that girl. Why do people assume that crying is the only way to express grief? Whether it's considered the norm or for some other reason, I believe that everyone grieves in their own way. I wonder if they thought the same about me, I thought in my mind. I couldn't help but laugh at myself, a bit self-deprecatingly. As I was lost in thought, it seemed the burial service next to us had ended. Seeing the adults who were whispering bad things about her now tapping her shoulder and saying, "Stay strong," made me feel sick. Once the murmuring crowd dispersed, the cemetery regained its quiet serenity. I thought about having just one cigarette and searched my jacket pocket. I heard the faint sound of footsteps scraping against gravel. It seemed someone was still at the grave next to us. Looking over, I saw her standing alone in front of the grave, holding a portrait. She suddenly turned towards me, as if she noticed my gaze. "Can you cry?" I was more surprised by my own words slipping out than she was, but she remained composed even when addressed. "The sadness hasn't reached me yet. It hasn't penetrated deep enough for me to feel it," she said, pointing to her chest with slender fingers. She said the one who passed away was her brother. Whether it was an accident or he took his own journey is unclear. She shared that something had indeed happened at school. I recalled the group of students in uniforms who attended. I didn't think she was lying. "It's creepy how they can just cry so easily, isn't it?" she said, noticing the frown on my face and giving a faint smile. "Who decided that you have to cry when you are sad? People cry even when they are not," she commented. I nodded slightly to her words. "Who decided how we're supposed to act in these situations? When Karen passed away and I didn't shed a tear, my friend said, 'It's okay to cry.' Hearing that made me feel uncomfortable. Perhaps she feels the same way. What she's feeling is despair. Thinking about the person who has suddenly disappeared from your world. Never being able to hear their voice, talk, or laugh together again. From your everyday life, only that person is missing. No matter how much you pray to God or perform memorial services, you can never meet them again. To dismiss this as merely sadness is absurd. This is despair. A feeling of falling deeper and deeper into darkness without any words. You weren't crying either," she observed. "I guess the sadness hasn't reached me yet," I replied. She smiled slightly at that. She looked younger when smiling than when showing no expression. Just then, we heard a small meow. For a moment, our eyes met in surprise. The sound of a kitten came from somewhere. She handed me her brother's portrait and started looking for the source of the sound. Without caring about getting her morning dress dirty, she knelt on the ground, peered into small gaps, and pushed her way into the underbrush. Then she exclaimed, "Found it!" Only her slender arm stretched out from the underbrush, clutching a kitten. The black kitten meowed softly. She told me it was placed in a cardboard box deep in the woods. Its eyes were barely open, still very young. It's a kitten that needs milk, not yet ready for solid food. I'll take it home. It must be fate, she said, cradling the kitten close to her chest and reaching out her hand to me. When I handed her the brother's portrait, she tucked it under her arm. Then, "See you around somewhere, Sean." The sight of her leaving, holding a cat, overlapped with the present image of Emily holding a cat in front of me. As she left, she definitely called my name. Wait a minute, Emily, we've met before, right, at the cemetery?" I suddenly exclaimed. She nodded without surprise, as if it was about time I realized it. Emily in front of me was the same person I met during Karen's burial. "You took quite a while to notice," she said. Standing there, she casually handed me a kitten as if it was the most natural thing to do. I accepted it, going with the flow. Being here, like this, handing you a cat, it's all natural. You would accept it, wouldn't you, Sean? Emily mentioned that she recognized me as the architect Sean when she saw me standing by Karen's grave. Her brother, who aspired to be an architect, had cherished an interview article of mine. Seeing me at the cemetery, she felt it was like her brother's persistent wish to meet me, which she found amusing. Emily became an architect to honor her brother's wishes. She gave her a smile, saying she didn't have any particular dreams of her own. "So, coming to my office was also no coincidence," I said. "Yes, of course, it wasn't a coincidence. I insisted quite a bit to get that letter of referral," she revealed. The truths she disclosed fit together like a puzzle. "But why?" I asked, puzzled even with the knowledge of her following her brother's wishes. "Because, Sean, you weren't crying." With a troubled look, Emily answered. "The speed of grief differs from person to person. Back then, none of the adults around understood." She seemed to have been despairing about that on the day of the burial as well. Then, seeing me, expressionless and holding a portrait by the neighboring grave, made her happy. Finding someone who shared the same feelings was comforting. Emily quietly concluded her story with these words. As she spoke, the kittens curled up on her lap, softly purring in their sleep. Watching her tenderly stroke the small backs, I remembered the slender arm that reached out from the underbrush that day. What happened to that kitten from back then? "Would it be okay if I raised these little ones?" I asked. Emily looked surprised for the first time. She had intended to raise all three herself. I mentioned that Karen, while she was alive, had a black cat. I also talked about how the black cat passed away, seemingly following Karen in death. "If it's okay with you, Sean, please take care of them. The kitten from that time is still doing well at my place," she said. The kitten from that time was still with her. "You're lucky to have been found by someone so kind," I said as Emily gently stroked the kitten, which stretched its limbs in contentment. Thus, the three black kittens were taken in by me. I even lifted each one up to show Karen's portrait. Now, the kittens run around the third floor of my office where I live and work, making it a lively place. I'm truly grateful none of my employees are allergic to cats. Their presence has naturally brought more laughter into the office. Everything seems to be moving in a positive direction. I felt this way every day. Ever since the black cats arrived, it seemed like the architecture firm began to thrive again. People say black cats are a bad omen. As I watched the kittens being pampered by the employees and murmured this, Emily told me, "You know, in the States, black cats are considered lucky cats." Emily looked at me with an expression that said, "Can't believe you didn't know that." "No, but you see, in other countries. But we're here in the States, aren't we?" She snorted in amusement, and I was left speechless. The employees who overheard our conversation burst into laughter. Feeling embarrassed, I was scratching my head when Lisa, a clerk who had been with us since the start, came over and said, "Sean, you've become more gentle." Perhaps she was right. After Karen passed away, the void that was left seemed to be filled by the black cats and Emily. The dream I had of Karen this morning didn't end in sadness. We went to see the cherry blossoms together, and a drunk Karen tumbled down the embankment, laughing in the stream. I have completely forgotten such memories, but they came back to me in my dream. I woke up laughing with her. For the first time since Karen passed away, I woke up from a dream about her without crying. Black cats as lucky cats. Watching the kittens running around, I indeed felt that was true, and it made me happy. On Karen's death anniversary, I went to visit her grave alone. I bought her favorite flowers and placed a cream puff in front of her grave. I had something important to discuss with Karen today. Kneeling down, I clasped my hands and spoke to Karen. Then something incredible happened. If you hesitate, they'll slip away. They are cats, after all. That was definitely Karen's voice. I looked around in surprise, but no one was there. I stared at the grave, dumbfounded. Karen had told me something similar in the past. As I reminisced, happy memories came flooding back. Yes, these words were spoken to me by Karen the first time I entered her room. Having never touched a cat before, I was frozen in place, facing the black cat in Karen's home. I wondered whether I should pet it or pick it up. Now I understand that just being there beside it is enough. But at that time, I had no idea. Karen, thanks for listening to my concerns. I took out my phone and selected Emily's number from my contacts. After taking a deep breath, I made a call. "Hi Sean, did something happen? Because it's unusual for you to call on the weekend." She must be at home. I could hear the sound of a cat meowing in the background of Emily's voice on the phone. That black kitten we found here back then. It felt like it connected Emily and me. "Listen, I don't want you to just slip away, but I need you to hear me out." Saying that, I felt my heart racing as if I were back in my school days. Was confessing love always this nerve-wracking? It was the first time since Karen's death that I tried to express my feelings, and I struggled to find the right words. Emily laughed on the other end of the line as I stumbled over my words. "Don't make me wait too long, or I'll slip away because I'm kind of feline. Please hurry up and say you love me. I'll wait for another 5 seconds." I gave her a smile and scratched my head at Emily's cheeky words. It felt as if Karen was laughing her head off beneath the grave. 5 seconds isn't enough, so wait for me until we can meet tomorrow." With that, I ended the call. A little teasing like this should be forgivable. Surely, she must be pouting with her cheeks puffed up, calling me indecisive. Now, how should I express my feelings to her tomorrow? As if to give me a gentle nudge, a soft breeze blew.